Welcome back. Thank you very much for staying with us. Now, as blackouts continue, all scrutiny is firmly on Eskom. Government is scrambling to get a handle on the energy crisis as South Africans grow ever more frustrated. Many are blaming the crisis on sabotage. Now, we all know Eskom's power stations are national key point areas, but what does this mean in terms of sabotage being at play here? Well, let's speak now to Calvin Rafadi, a BizzTracer forensic investigator. Calvin, good morning and thank you very much for your time. Now, let's start with the latest update of a bug found in the CEO's car. I mean, that device, which is called a transceiver, we believe, is not commercially available and typically used by law enforcement and intelligence agencies. Just talk us through the capabilities of such a gadget as a forensic investigator. What does it do? Does it merely intercept communication or it also transmits location?
Thanks for inviting me, Mfundo. What I can tell you about the device, this type of devices, they are available anywhere you can get. Even in your Mayfair, the China Mall, you do get this type of devices. Now, how the device operates, you get it in two formats. There's one that can do the voice recording, but also bear in mind that they are supported with a battery. Now, the lifespan of the battery can last as far as even 3 months on that particular device. Then you get the one that is also inserted with a SIM card, which communicates with the GPS location of where the whereabouts of the particular device, if it's installed by way in your car or anywhere else. So what it does, it can intercept the conversation, and simultaneously, some of them, they can also intercept on getting the GPS, meaning the location of the person. But like I said, the lifespan of this particular device is over 3 months. And once it's a 3 months type of a device, it's somebody who knows you. Let's say yourself, Mfundo, who must come and insert the device in your car. Nobody can just come in the car and insert a device. So it's somebody that will know a particular person and insert the device. So in most incidents, this type of devices, they are used by private investigators for spousal cheating. That's what most of these devices they are used for. But we must also bear in mind a person of that stature, the CEO of Eskom, trading in a national key point matters. Now, this becomes a matter whereby if the person is threatened, you don't hire a forensic investigator to do your threat analysis. You go as far as crime intelligence or state security. They are the one who comes and conducts for free, by the way, your threat analysis. So you don't need to pop out any money of that sort when you are in that type of a position. Now, the worrying factor is if they say now they want to implement the same strategy of investigation even to other managers, we do respect that they can do it on their own accord, but not from the taxpayers' money, because it is not allowed. It's fruitless expenditure.
You know, I want to take you back. You've said quite a lot. I want to take you back to accessibility, because we were of the view that, as I said a bit earlier in my first question, that this was only accessible, it was not commercially sold, it's only accessible to intelligence operatives. But now you're saying this is something that is sold at even China Mall, where anybody could be intercepting my communication if they're close to me, or even my location. This is able to transmit my location.
Yes, it's easily accessible. In fact, even when you can go on an open source, when we say open source, we say like when you go on Google, even on Alibaba, or where you can find the device, because mostly it is recommended by way of monitoring your kids. You can, but when you monitor your kids, it's obviously with consent. You give them this particular devices that I need to know your whereabouts where you go, when you come back from school, especially with the number of kidnappings that are happening. So in most incidents, they are sold over the counter just for the purpose of monitoring your spouse or even your kids. But most of the private investigators, they opt to use this particular device to monitor the whereabouts of any particular person. But without consent, with the POPI Act, it's a crime of what they are doing. But with consent, it is not a crime. So you can easily access it and get it even at your Binoni, some of the shops there. It's more like what they are saying, that the blue lights are meant only for the police to use. You can't access it anywhere. But you go to some of the outlets where they even sell sound system, you can easily go at the back of the yard and say, you know what, please trust me, I need to install the blue lights on the car. And that's why you see them around moving with blue lights, most of the cars. So this type of devices, they are easy.
And then robbing citizens, because a citizen, if they're stopped by those with blue lights at times, they would assume it would be legitimate police officers. But then to the reports of sabotage, one would assume a national key point is not easily accessible. Would it then be fair to assume that the sabotage is from within in this instance when we keep hearing of Eskom speaking of sabotage?
Yeah, you see, with the sabotage of the power station, I wouldn't relate the matter to this particular incident of Mr. DeRuyter's. Like I said, this to me, it's more of a spousal cheating type of, it's a domestic issue that you must deal with. But when it comes to issues of sabotage, you know, when you investigate sabotage, especially in the power station, I call them the thermal power station, which are fire code. I call them the Russian relay. That's the nickname that I gave to them. But the people that are, you need to be on the ground and understand from the security point of view to even as far as to the procurement. Now, indeed, sabotage, it is very rife at Eskom, and it is the cause of load shedding, unfortunately. And some of us, we had the opportunity to be on the ground and investigate and see that even when they speak of lack of skill of engineers, I mean, you get your people that are doing the so-called CNI maintenance, control and instrumental maintenance, which is your boiler makers and the turbine. Those particular people, they get a contract perhaps of 5 years. Now, on the contract, it stipulates under some of the clause that they need to hire certain engineers or artisans to transfer the skill. And they don't do that. That's where, you get those type of loopholes. Now, we're crying and coming back and say there's lack of skill. But if you go and audit most of those contracts, you don't find any transfer of skill. They don't do it.
But Calvin, when we speak of you, you're not just an ordinary person who's assuming when we speak of sabotage that indeed there's sabotage. As BizzTracers, you were once contracted to investigate something that was happening inside there. And it seems that there seems to be that kind of a trend where even you would see what some are now calling javelin, where you would see former employees of Eskom retiring or resigning, starting up their own companies to eventually serve as Eskom, but then having their colleagues who have stayed behind somehow damaging infrastructure, and some of them are brought back. And of course, this is just some, and there remain allegations, but nevertheless, there seems to be that allegation of some who resigned to start their own companies and ended up offering the maintenance to Eskom.
Yes, indeed, Lufundo, you got it very, very, very correct. Like the clause of the contract, if you go on and see the so-called, what I said, the CNI maintenance, you need somebody with a 10-year experience as an engineer. Now, what happens is you get you remember those Rochecon, now I think they converted to Eskom Rocktech Industrials. Now, those type of people, what they do, they oversee the production of the power station. But what they do is, because of this BEE clause, they'll get somebody of your stature, a black woman or a black person. They open up a company of maintaining of the power station. Then they come in at the back door. But those people, most of them, they feel so entitled over this power station because they've been in donkey years in those power stations. So they know the power station left and right. And you know this thing also, what we realized as we were investigating in the power station, there's no such thing as the maintenance is not properly done or perhaps unforeseen circumstance of the breakings of the power station, because every day they all report with the drawings and the reports of the ongoing of the power station daily to the service manager. Now they are sitting with those drawings. Now where the monopoly is, you know, we even had to learn a term called piracy. You know, at some point I was so happy that, oh, now I found the engineers that are pirating, because when you speak of pirating, you think of, you know, forging something. But no. If the component of another unit gets broken, you are able to take from another unit and feed on that one so that you keep it running. Now, in their storage, they must always have 3 of those components in their storage. But you know what they do? They don't keep record. Now, quality management service system, it is not there. It's lacking. And yet they are a RTO registered, ISO registered company. Now, what they do is, once it's completed, now they go on an emergency. Now they go and procure those particular components on what we call a local purchase order. Now, that's where as well the monopolies act. And once they do that, they don't sometimes even buy original parts. So nobody, if
Calvin,
the component gets
who commissioned this report, this investigation? Apologies for interjecting. Apologies. Who commissioned this report? Because it's our understanding that either the CEO has not seen it or is yet to make considerations around it. Who was the person who commissioned this report?
Yeah, that's a good one. You see, I was called in at the Tutuka power station. The reason being, in most of the power stations, to be quite honest with you, weekly they go on at the police station to report element of sabotage, either by way of a conveyor belt who's been cut by somebody, a human error, or a component gets stolen or copper gets stolen. Now, I was called in to come and investigate on that particular sabotage. So that's where I found the shenanigans. So I was appointed at the station level. Then the GM at the time, he's the one that commissioned and brought us into the power station. But having done all those things, I took the very same report now straight to the Department of the Minister, what you call this thing, Public Enterprise.
Yes.
So they had a look at the report. Then they took it to ESCOM. ESCOM, at first, they were very lenient to, to entertain that particular report because we are in court on another matter of litigation. But at the end of the day, what they've done now, they are sitting with the report, but because they are protecting some of the people who are on the report, now that's where the problems and the shenanigans is. And we urge the new board, if they want to clean ESCOM, I think they need to root out the current management because of they are very compromised. They protect one another. Even though some they sit on, like your COO, he's a board member, he's a non-executive member at this particular Rotec industry and Trans Africa. So they need to audit in the space. And I'm sure they won't come back empty-handed and they need to root them out if they want to get
this is honestly problematic. It means we need that report. As a country, we need to establish at the very least what you established when you went on the ground. But obviously, this is one commissioned by them. So the public does not have access to that report currently. Am I correct?
Yes, the public do not have access to the report. So what I've done, I've went to the organized crime at the Hawks in Mpumalanga, and I've opened a criminal case. Now, I do speak with them now and then. So they say, no, they are waiting for the Financial Intelligence Center to analyze some of the flow of money. Because, sometimes when you investigate corruption, you follow the money. Those are the principles. So they are at the stage. And, I was even thinking to call them and even at the charge of treason. Because remember, we are talking of a national key point, and anybody who sabotages the state infrastructure, it is actually even a charge of treason. They are bringing the country into disrepute. So I want to go and even add, let alone the fraud and the sabotage, to add treason on that particular matter. Because we've managed to do a good job and analyze and managed to link all the suspects that are involved in this space.
Calvin, at the very least, we will try to get in touch with ESCOM and establish the status of that report. Are they considering it? Will they be having those within ESCOM removed and perhaps even arrested insofar as that report recommends? But thank you very much for your time this morning. That's Calvin Rafadi from BizzTracers Forensic Investigators. More news on